Today's video is all about clearing up a myth out there that clear background stamps don't stamp as well as red rubber. I'm going to share with you a few tips and tricks that I do to ensure that you have practically perfect images every time. One of the reasons I love clear background stamps is that they're so easy to see where you're placing your image. It's one of the benefits to clear stamps, and I want to make sure that you are feeling successful when you go to use those background stamps, that you're getting crisp and clean images every time. Tip number one, and the most important, when you receive your new stamps, one of the first things you need to do is prep those images before stamping. If you didn't know this was something you needed to do, this will make all the difference in getting a crisp and clean image when you start stamping. So join me as I show you close up a few things that I do to ensure those crisp and clean images. When you get your stamps right out of your package, what I like to do is either adhere it to the Misti or to my clear block before I stamp. And I'm going to grab a microfiber cloth. It's really important that you use microfiber cloths. These allow you to clean the surface without getting lint or other little fibers on your stamps. And don't be afraid, you've really got to scrub this stamp image. There's a residue left over from the process of making photopolymer that actually repels ink and doesn't allow it to stick like it should, and will create that splotchiness in your stamp images. So if you're not doing that, please be sure to start doing that. You'll find that you're so much happier with your initial stamping results. There's a second thing you can do in addition to prepping your images. I do it sometimes, but not all the time. Depends on how solid the surface image is. This one is more of a detail line. It'll probably be fine without it. But I'm going to show you, I just take the embossing watermark pad. Our new embossing pad works fabulous for this. And go ahead and then wipe that off. It's just another great way to prep your stamps for that crisp, clean image, which I'll show you in just a minute. The second tip I have for you is using foam. When you buy a red rubber stamp, there's foam attached to that, which actually helps create that crisp image that people talk about. You can achieve the same thing using your clear stamps. All you need to do is either purchase a Misti, and I just use the mini Misti. This is my most used tool. I love the size. Background stamps fit perfectly in this. It has a foam layer, which acts as the foam that's attached to red rubber. It's the same, it provides you the same result. If you don't have a Misti, go to Michael's, spend 99 cents and get yourself a piece of foam. You will also need a large clear block. And with that, you'll be able to create the perfect images every time. Okay, one of the first ways you can create this is using the foam pad and a clear block. This block is sized to fit a background stamp, so make sure you have a block large enough. It's really important as well. Now what we're going to do, this has been prepped, and I want you to see the detail line that's in this stamp image. It's very fine and very detailed, and I've had a lot of people say, how do you get all those fine detailed lines? These are the steps. If you follow these, I think you'll find that you have a lot more success when stamping with these clear stamps. Now, on the foam, I always lay down a piece of type paper, especially if I buy the white foam. I just don't like it to get dirty. Even with the black though, sometimes it will transfer the ink. So go ahead, lay your stamp down, and what you want to do is make sure first that that ink pad is nice and juicy. You're going to stamp this up really good. Now, one thing I want to mention, depending on the type of stamp, there are stamps that ink will puddle in the valleys, and this is a normal part of the stamping process. It doesn't make you a bad stamper. It doesn't always mean the stamp is bad. It just sometimes has to do with how much ink is on. Don't be afraid to take a minute and clean up that ink. It's really an important part of the stamping process. And when you think that you have this on your stamp and you've done something wrong, you haven't. It is sometimes a little bit of a pain, but if you want a great result, you do have to take a few of those extra steps to ensure those perfect images every time. Now carefully turn that over, place over your card front, just like so. Now you want to stand over this, give it some good even pressure. Don't be afraid to make sure that you can see that it's dispersing in all the areas. Voila! Beautiful front every time. Tip number 3, ink pads and paper. Really important elements that you need to make sure when you're stamping your background stamps. First of all, your ink pads. Make sure that they're inked well and that they have the ink. If they're dry, you're not going to get that ink coverage that you need for those crisp images. Also, I love the firm foam. The firm foam is a smoother stamp surface that allows you to transfer that ink more evenly. In addition, it's really important. In fact, it's probably one of them, all these things are important, but this is so important to remember. Do not buy cheap paper. High quality, ultra smooth cardstock is really important in getting that crisp, clean image. Next up, I'm going to show you how to use your Misti to accomplish the same thing. So what I do is make sure your image is prepped as well. This has already been prepped. I typically, though, will wipe it down before I stamp just to make sure that it's good and clean. So I've gone ahead and pre-cut my 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 card front, and I'm going to lay that down and make sure it's where I want it. Okay, then using our fresh pink ink pad and that nice firm foam, I find that using the Misti, I don't have to stamp twice if I make sure that it's inked up really well. So that's why I don't worry about the magnet. Go ahead, place that down. Now don't be afraid to really rub these images. There you go. Practically perfect. Okay, the last thing I wanted to share was how easy it is to get such a detailed stamp to stamp nicely. One thing you want to do though, I want to emboss this white on craft, which is actually one of my very favorite techniques. I just love how it pops. So you want to make sure you get that embossing buddy out. This is such an important part of embossing, especially backgrounds. They can really transfer a lot. And especially when you get into something this detailed. These tiny little dots. So peel that off. I'm going to lay that down over the top. That Misti. I'm going to grab the embossing ink. And we're going to just really make sure you give that some good coverage. Okay, there we go. And you're going to stamp that in place. Again, really make sure you press all over. Now again, you can use the same thing using the foam pad and a clear block if you don't have a Misti. I do tend to use the Misti more for this very reason. I just feel like I can give it a little more. Check that out. Then I have here some embossing powder. I love to use the detail white. I'm just going to tap that down in place. Make sure you get everything. Then go ahead and get your embossing gun out. There you have a practically perfect polka dot background. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you learned something new and that by applying these simple tips and tricks, when you pull out those clear background stamps, that you'll have a more successful experience. Thank you so much. Have a great day and happy stamping.